Fucking three-time champion.
That's right, Nut. Well, boys, end of the season, man. Nut, welcome to the show, though.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for having me. I am the emperor of the exploded Death Star. That's what it feels like right now.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. Kind of feels like it's lost its luster a little bit since we have a new champion, but
Yeah,
we do have Emperor Nuttius on
hell
the
yeah.
docket tonight. Missing a couple other Wilson Time crew members, feeling a little sad out there because we know why for Red. Um, and I think Diz is just over the season. Let's just put it that way. But here we are, man. What a season. I don't know. Wouldn't have guessed two carries, two completely different spots. What do you think
Yeah,
about
I
that?
still contend Peyton's team is pretty good, even though he lost the sack.
Dude, yeah, I was saying the same thing. I'm like, I've been pounding the door all year for Trone's team, and
Yeah,
well, here we are.
I don't know how that. I mean, I know we're not giving Cal the shine, and honestly, I gave him like 45 minutes in the Padres, so we can start with Peyton. But the man got the lineup decisions is something that has to be studied because I feel like that's like my biggest nightmare. And I mentioned this on the Podley of like getting it wrong and losing a week, and I don't know how he handled Blythe when he got it wrong 10 times, 13 times this season.
Dude, I know. I was trying to go back and look at all of the like the start sit percentages,
Yeah,
and I can't find it in Sleeper if it has like a recap for the year. But there was one point he was like 76% a few weeks ago. And I'm like, that has got to be the lowest in the
it's
league for sure.
I think I found it on something. I don't know what screen I was on. He's at 78% to end the year, which is 4% lower than the next lowest person, who's at 82%. So it's bad.
Yeah, that's got to be some. I feel like maybe if we have an ability to, if they're going to keep doing it and like logging it, then we can change, like add that to the nut report and the stats.
Yeah.
Because I would be very curious to see how it plays out going forward. If that's just kind of like who Orsacco usually is, the worst manager, I guess maybe.
It's definitely. I mean, I think in the least efficient. I mean, he got it pretty much every week. It seemed like, and then the one week that it all clicked was that final week against me, and I was like, well, look, there you go, guys. Look, his team is really good. And then he never played that well ever again.
Dude, yeah, and but man, to start that Jake Moody, which granted, like the dude had his, opportunities,
He did.
but I'm like, it's kind of the same thing that I felt about Young Wei Koo and everything. There's a couple of guys this year that you're just kind of thinking to yourself, man, there should be on good teams or offenses, plenty of opportunities, but they just suck this year. Dude, even
Yeah,
Justin Tucker was,
sucked.
pretty mid. Yeah, just weird. But the
Yeah,
Jake Moody thing, I'm like, I don't know if you're going and staring like down the barrel of a Sacco and you want to throw Jake Moody out there, like, whew,
well,
you got
they
some-
were they were talking about like him maybe losing his job or something like that the week prior. So I was like, well, I mean, and nothing else. Maybe we just consider. I mean, Harrison Butker was on the waiver wire. Oh, he didn't do that much better. Okay, it was. I guess it's bad, but I just like, to your point. There had to be someone else, and those two missed kicks killed him. Killed him.
dude. So brutal. Yeah, it was a real pleasure to watch with Gabi. I wish Trome was around for it too. That would have been sweet. But man, Gabi was just sitting there like we were counting down every single point that Jared Goff was getting. And Gabi is just like he was losing his mind. And I don't think I've ever seen somebody so happy to not be the worst.
Right, right.
Like Gabi was definitely cherishing the moment, I have to say.
It's funny. I mean, you haven't experienced this. Cal hasn't experienced this, and Tanner and Alec are too young to understand the gravity of these Sacco appearances. But it's the one experience that I have. It is absolute the best feeling in the world. But then there's that sinking reality that you still were in the Sacco, and no one will ever forget that. So it's like you can't really celebrate to the same level that you really want to, but you are saved.
Dude, let's talk about that for a second because I didn't realize that it was just down to Calvin and I now that I've never been
Yeah.
a Sacco. Hey.
You guys have been
But
close, man. I mean, super fucking close.
yeah, Red actually called me yesterday and He's like, hey, if you and Calvin are talking about DVFFL, he's like, just want to give you a reminder that you guys have no money to start with. And last time that happened, you both were in the sewer. I was like, well, so were you, bud. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it is crazy. I mean, I'm thinking about it just 14 years. I'm like, damn, yeah, never been in it. And it's like you kind of forget who's actually been in there because there was also talks about like, oh, Pate's been in there recently. I went and looked it up. It hasn't been since 2017 and it's one
Yeah.
appearance. So I'm like, oh, that's 7 years ago, dude. That's a decent amount of time.
Truly. I mean, like, we still hold a lot of like Jesse's early Sacco shit shows in the beginning of his kind of career. He had two of them, like, kind of back to back. And now I don't really think of Jesse as a Sacco level team, though he spent the majority of his career kind of in that space. So funny how
Yeah.
time moves on.
Do you think that the shine of a championship, maybe less of a champion. Let's talk more Sacco. Like having that Sacco as time passes, it like loses its value or weight.
I think to a certain extent, I mean, like, the person who's going to be testing this the most is Cody, because we know Cody's actually, I think, to be honest, to his core, Cody actually knows how to play fantasy football, which makes the Sacco appearances just so much more funny to me. But
Yes.
I do think at some point there is like a decay rate. I mean, think we do this for another 5, 10 years, and a Sacco that happened 15 years ago is going to feel just like we can't, like,
Yeah.
inevitably we all got to admit to ourselves, we're probably all going to get a Sacco at some point in our lives. Come on.
I mean, statistically speaking, yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
But yeah, I think for me, it definitely loses its weight over time, like it decays, like you're saying.
yeah,
But at the same time, it can't fully because like when you're talking arguments, especially like just placement and all time records and everything, it that's like a huge part of the argument there
true.
always. And like I just did a ranking earlier, just like off the top of my head, and really, it's always like, okay, who's got Sackos? We got to group them all together.
Yep.
Who doesn't have a Sacco or a championship? Kind of crush them all together, and then you're champions. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it still sticks. Like I don't care if a Sacco happened 40 years ago. If I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah.
80 or going to my deathbed, I'm like, I don't ever want to be speaking about a Sacco in my entire life. So,
How do
and
well,
also,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to that end, like, now that it's just you and Cal, and obviously I had a moment in the pod that talks about how Cal has moved up, and if there was a legacy ranking, I think Cal has moved up significantly. How does it feel now that legitimately Cal does have a top 5 team all time case that he can make now that he has a championship?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I thought the same way, same process. I'm like, if I'm going through the all-time legacy, I do think Cal surpasses pretty much everybody outside of you.
Yeah,
And then of course me. But well, and I guess Garrett, if we really
yeah,
want if we
yeah,
want
yeah.
to talk about former members and everything. And yeah, it's really just because like how well he put together his team this year as far as like the actual roster itself on paper. When you're looking at it, I heard this in the Podly. Um, Shout out to the Podly, dvffl.com, check it out. But the team itself is crazy. I mean, you look at it, and you're like, in this day and age, with how competitive we are, the amount of research and everything, how do you get a team like that? And then on top of it, scoring, I think it was second most average points per game.
Yeah.
Um, he was right there trying to knock on the door for the record there. But also, it's like Cal always pulled out of his ass every year when we were talking about all-time rankings and everything, his overall record,
Yeah.
just but so yeah, he moves up higher, definitely. It's just, he has to go get the back-to-back, or he's got to get another championship. And believe me, he was reminding me all night last night. Like I think I got 20 times told to me like, man, if I get another one, especially back to back, I'm creeping right up on you. How would you feel? Okay, so Nut, if he gets a
Yeah.
second championship, if like, how would you stack him then?
I That's the
Would he
part that I
surpass
think
you?
is it. I think then I feel very subjective about this, but you know, it takes a lot to get to the finals in general. There's a half accomplishment that comes along the way, and obviously getting the championship is the biggest thing. But he's only gone to the finals if he gets it again next year, hypothetically, 3 times. I've been 5 times. We have the same amount of championships. Like at some point, there's still just a little bit more to it, but the argument gets
Right.
less and less because of that Sacco appearance, which is still the tarnish on my resume.
You
Fucking
see,
hate
that's
it.
what, dude, yeah, that's the problem. And like I think for you, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be talk like what's gonna make you stay up there is the amount of playoff appearances, especially in a
Yeah.
row, all that sort of stuff. But dude, it's like I was rooting for Red Redmond to get the championship solely because like yes, he would have two. It just having Cal now enter that pool and with that record and all that, I don't know, it sits very wrong with me. Maybe
Yeah.
it's also because it's Calvin. I don't know.
It's true, man. I mean, and you start looking at the little stats, and quietly Cal has like creeped into all of the same spaces that, using myself as an example, as an argument, like I've been to the playoffs 13 times. He's been to the playoffs 11 times. The next highest is you with 8. So there's a huge gap there. Regular season wins. He's the only guy over 100 along with me. So it's like
Yeah,
you start to get into the resume, and you're like, if he does get another one and his resume on the back end stays squeaky clean, you know, uh,
right.
it's going to get tough in the legacy rankings. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I don't look forward to that. I don't like picturing it. Let me
No.
ask you this. So when it comes to, because we all know, like maybe not all of us, but we definitely a good majority of us pound on the table, like, hey, your all-time, like your finish at the end of the year counts. Like, don't
Yeah.
forget about that. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like it? I don't know. How much does it actually matter in a sense? And because to me, like when Cleaner was talking shit about third place and everything, yeah, I still set my lineup. I was still trying
Yeah.
to win. But I was like, fuck third place, dude. Like, whatever. How do you like see it?
I think I'm kind of the psycho that will just continue to fight until the very end. I mean, I had like probably more waiver wire pickups in that final week, trying not to get eighth, because I was just trying to prove a point that everyone's like, yeah, your team sucks. And truly, losing David Montgomery basically just put a gun to my team's head, and that pretty much ended it.
Yeah,
But I
brutal.
was trying to beat Cody, who everyone deemed at the time of the flex seating was probably the second scariest team in terms of points. I'm like, if I beat Cody and get seventh, everyone can shut the fuck up. And then just fell flat on my face again. So I chase all that stuff because I think at the end, those average finishes and those top 3 finishes, those are kind of like, I deem those as like tiebreakers. It's like, okay, we have the same amount of accolades, maybe the same amount of championships or finals appearances. Well, how do you finish at the end of the year? It's like, oh, he finishes on average 5th and the other guy finishes 7th. It's like, well, probably the guy who finishes 5th, probably a better team.
Right. Well, and like actually, that's a good way of looking at it too. And for those that don't really seem to care about, you know, your finish and everything, there's also like narratives to prove out there. I know Dirtle, big part of it was he was tracking his scores because he's like, yeah, same thing. I don't want to be considered the shittiest,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, okay, if I could string together some points, give me like a respectable kind of finish or whatnot, or like the revenge games and all that sort of stuff. Um, yeah, I think like it is always important, especially when it comes to our arguments at the draft. So yeah, to all you people out there that don't seem to care, it
Fuck
matters.
you. I got a question. I got a question for you. I was thinking about this, and I think there's only a handful of teams that are playing this way. But ironically, in this league, I think there's 2 ways that people are playing. There's a good majority of teams that are playing for the championship, and there's another majority of teams, or a certain amount of number of teams, that are playing not to win the Sacco. Who do you think is in the not trying to win the Sacco? Because that's like the scared, easy. I think obviously probably the headliner is Brandon. But outside
Yep.
of that, who else is in that? I don't want to lose, but I don't care if I win sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that Brandon's the king of that.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to lose, and I would put, man, probably after this year, I would put like your like Jaden in there. I would put
Yeah.
because like even still, even when Jaden was going to his championships and everything, and maybe this is just like the trading aspect and like your your activity log essentially.
Yeah.
Because like even during those years, there wasn't a lot of trades that were made that I'm like, man, if you beefed up your squad in like just one area, your whole team's dynamic would change. And so to me, it's always kind of like, yeah, I'm not playing to lose, but then also when you get like a Justin Jefferson, you hit something, then it's yeah, it's still you're not playing to win a championship. You're just you got some guys, maybe got some luck or whatever. So I put Jay in there, and then honestly though, outside of that, those are probably like the two big ones. The guys that are playing for championships, you would be in there.
Yeah.
Myself, Cal, I would say I would want to put Red in there, but I need
Yeah. He kind
Red
of
got to.
he falls in the third category to me. He's just playing to be relevant. Like the mud. I
Yeah,
mean, like I said this, and I still believe it. I don't think there was anything that he did this year because he did so well with the drafting and he rounded out the team the way he had to. So it wasn't like there was a trade left on the table that I think he could have done. Like I wouldn't have recommended
right.
that he should have consolidated ETN and whoever, Tyrone Tracy to get something else. Like I don't think that trade was
Yeah,
out there. But this constant amount of money, I think like what I said at the very end of the Podly is like all the pressure, the 14-year bill that Cal had due, he paid. And now that bill sort of falls to Christian as the ultra relevant, always around in the playoffs, but hasn't done anything lately team. And I don't know what the next couple of years look like for him in that regard, because I think he has to kind of push the envelope beyond this like safety net of $220 every year.
yeah, no, I agree. So I do think there is a third category in there because you have the people playing for the championship, and then you have the people playing not to lose. But then, like you said, it's kind of like the relevancy or just to say that you're good. That's where I would put like Pate,
Yeah.
and I would put Jesse in there. I think honestly, and another person to add to the play not to lose would be Alec, and I think it's just the way sometimes he speaks about his team and when he's like just happy to be here kind of thing,
Right.
and I'm like, dude, no, I don't want it to be like happy to be here. Like if I'm gonna lose to you, I want you to be like chomping at the bit to beat me, you know. And so it's yeah, but the relevancy thing, just like having because like now you're talking about with Cal having that like paying his bill and everything.
Yeah.
And Red's kind of looking at that. I think Trone is obviously
Yeah.
there too because it's like, okay, going to the 15th year, you just got a Sacco, you haven't made it past the second round ever. It's
Yeah.
like time, the clock's coming for you. But I do you like who would you put in the play not to lose in those categories?
I agree with you on pretty much all of them. With Alec, I said this as like part of his lesson. I said that he's actually better than you think, and I think this little like coy, like I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm doing it, guys, and like my team is just a bunch of scrappy, naughty boys, and it's like that's not working anymore when you take an 8th seeded team to the finals and the second round 2 years in a row. Like you clearly know what you're doing, so. I think we got to kind of treat Alec with a little less kid gloves and more of like, shut the fuck up. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, dude.
That sort of thing.
I agree with you on that. I think Alec has played a very like played a good role as like I'm an innocent little boy, and
Yeah.
like like I'm just happy to be here. My go everybody and everything. It's
Yeah.
like, but then you start looking at it, and you're like, okay. I mean, yeah, you've gone to the playoffs 3 straight years in your first 3 seasons, and you somehow keep ending up with like these hogs, like Josh Jacobs leading the league, and I think
Seriously.
was the offensive player of the year that year,
Yeah.
and like stuff like that. So I agree with you there. Anything like anybody else that would be kind of surprising?
For Cody this year, it's hard to judge because I don't want to look at these assessments as like a 1 year, anecdote. I think you're right. Like on Jaden, for example, like that point about not making those trades. Even the year that he went to the championship to play you, he only made he only made 2 trades that year. You made 6. I think at the end of the day, the fact is you got to make a lot more than 2 trades to win the championship. It doesn't matter what they might be, but it just for some reason everyone who wins usually is in the upper echelon of trades. So to that end, I think Cody was trying to win a championship this year. I honestly think Cody,
Yeah.
every year that he's doing the Sacco, that he's won the Sacco, he's still trying to win a championship. He's just balls to the wall. He just doesn't know where he's
Yeah.
going.
he's just flying around everywhere.
Yeah.
He's just tossing shit around and just kind of to see what happens, blacking out when he's drafting Najee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't work out for everybody, but I felt like this year was the first year that I took a downshift in gears, and I was playing not to lose for half the year. And I made this big anecdotal moment at the end of the Podley talking about gamemanship theory. And I know that you've talked about like what strategies are out there in the world, and I really put it to the left. I put it right to the fucking edge of like how many players can you trade away and still win? And I can tell you that I would never do this again. I will never do this again. I need to. Winning is way more important. Even if I end up getting in the second round and getting bounced, I would rather that than going in and just going like, well, I got a big budget for next year. Like that doesn't feel worthy at any
Yep.
point.
No, and I think too, like as time's going on, that when you start like when you get your first championship or you string together like a really good season where you stacked up a lot of wins, it, you're kind of like, okay, well, I have to keep doing this
Yeah.
because I got these other guys, either creeping or they've already passed me in this sort of area. Like that's how I feel a lot of the time now. It's like I have to win because I
Yeah.
can't let somebody else creep up into my ranking. Where if you're like one of those guys that I was talking about earlier in that middle tier where you don't have a Sacco, but you don't have a championship, I don't know if there's as much pressure maybe kind of built on some of those members because it's like, yeah, you obviously want to win. We all want to win, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like there's like just when you're like looking at yourself in the all-time rankings, maybe there's a little less pressure.
No, I think
I
you're
don't
right. I
know.
think like once you start doing something repeatedly, so like for me, when I was on that consecutive playoff streak, it became obsessive of like, regardless of the result of the season, I have to make the playoffs. That's just the narrative that I'm spinning. And it worked for a while and it obviously came to an end. Same thing with you with championships. It's like you can't go into another season and just go, well, this year I'm just trying to get some money. And then we'll see what the
Yeah.
following year looks like. It's like, no, you've already won enough championships. You got to keep the narrative going. And I think a lot of these teams, like the Peyton and Jaden's and the Jesse's, to a certain extent. I think Jesse's changed his narrative a little bit. Mike is now falling into that space too. He hasn't gotten past the second round either. What is the narrative? Like Mike is on a consecutive playoff streak right now. This year looked really good. It's funny that his team kind of rebounded in round 2 and round 3 of the playoffs, but those 2 rounds that he needed him, the first round and the round in the week before, he just shit himself. And
Yeah.
that's to me, fantasy is so fucking hard to play, especially in this league, that if you get 6 wins after 8 weeks and let's say you're 6-2, you would be doing your team a disfavor and not trying to push it all the way forward. You already got 6 wins. You just need one more win, and you're basically guaranteed yourself a playoff spot. So why not just go fucking balls to the wall, win it, and then deal
Yes.
with the consequences later?
Exactly. I think no, spot on. So I think that those players that or members that like they get some taste of success and then don't do anything with it, like you're saying, it's like a disservice. And we've already looked. I think last year we looked it up, and Jesse is the only person that's won a
Yeah.
championship without really. I think it was one trade that year or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I mean, that it speaks to the numbers themselves that you got to make some trades and everything. And obviously there's outside factors that could, from life that come into it and stuff. But like, if you do know that you have a good team and you have a shot at winning a championship, you got to go, like, you got to push all your cards in, put all your
Yep.
chips in. Cause like, I could see, like, if we talk about your season this year, for instance, it isn't like there's a certain point where you're looking at your team and you're like, okay, I know I don't have enough to get it done. Maybe if I get some luck.
Yeah.
So now there's a different like a different strategy coming into play where it's like, I'm going to collect some draft cash. I'm going to like, you're still obviously playing to win the championship. So you're trying to build your team up, but it's like, you got to be looking ahead to,
Yeah.
what's my keeper options look like, all that stuff. Let's talk about your season. Cause every guest we brought on, we've been talking about,
Yeah.
favorite moments or so. Were there one of the things I've been asking each time is trades. Were there any opportunities you had out there that you wish you would have done or maybe
Uh,
didn't do?
Man, so many, to be honest, because I think everyone smelled blood with me early on. And it's so funny that this is a two-part answer to this. One is the first trade of a season is the hardest trade to say yes to because you are still baked into your pre-draft notions. And obviously, I'm talking like we're trading like week 5, week 4, maybe, or
Yeah.
even talking about it. And you really have to like break through this wall of like, fuck it, I'm going to do this. And then after you make that one trade, regardless of the player that you send away, suddenly your brain is like, I can do this. And then the trades start to flow in. So with that in mind, the one trade that legitimately ate me up for like 48 hours was Diz was super tilted on Ramondre Stevenson in like week 4 or something like that. And it was like the week before he played me. And I was thinking too far ahead. And I was like, I don't want to give him Ramondre. Then the next week, Ramondre plays me. That would suck. But he was offering me 20 draft dollars straight up for Ramondre. And at the time, I was like, Ramondre was in this like fumble situation and Antonio Gibson was coming on. And I was like, what if I just sent him away and then when he plays me, he's bad. And I ended up backing out of it. I was really thinking about it over 2 days, essentially. Like, I got to do this. And I decided not to do it because I'm like, running backs are too precious. Then the following week, Ramondre shits himself again, fumbles, and I lose to Tanner that week. And I was like, I should have sent him away. He was a landmine the entire time. And I never won him. They sent him away immediately after that game for the Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk thing, which was in its own like fucking bear trap for me. So
I was just looking at you guys' matchup that week, and Ramondre had 4.2 points with a fumble loss.
Dude lost 7 fumbles on the season. And to be honest, I love Ramondre. I have a type. Everyone knows I have a type for these big, bullish running backs. So Audric Estime
Big boys.
The moment. What I will say is there's been moments where I've been tilted because I've had this long-term vision of certain players. You picked up Audric Estime for like a week, and I was seething about this for like the entire time you had him.
I remember that
because I wanted him on the wire just as like he's like my 19th bench spot. As I view a couple players on the wire, I'm like, no one's gonna look at this guy, but I'm looking at him and he's essentially on my bench. But if someone picks him up, I'm pissed. You picked him up, I was pissed, and then you dropped him, and then I was like, change of scenery. We need to get Audric Estime on the team, and then he fucking sucked all year,
dude. Yeah, that was the Broncos. I mean, it's just like some of the. I feel like I say this every year, but like it's such a weird season. But man, yeah, like the Broncos running back group, I just didn't understand a damn thing, dude.
Oh man, I couldn't understand it for the life of me. And the fact that I sold DJ Moore, which I thought was I'm a genius, and I got $10 for Javonte, and then Javonte just sucked worse to the point where I never started him again.
Oh yeah, there was plenty of times I was barking up cleaner's tree for Javonte there, and I was like, dude, okay, so I was actually thinking about this earlier today, because I was thinking about like the trades and everything that I did, but then I was thinking about all the ones I didn't do,
Yeah.
and I'm like, thank God I didn't. Were there any like that for you?
Yeah, there was a couple people who were hot on Bucky Irving all year, and to be completely honest, it took me 6 weeks to kind of see the Bucky Irving thing. I was more than open to trade him in the first week or two because I'm like, I see when Sean Tucker had that killer game.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck. And then the coach was like, it's a 3-headed backfield. And I'm like, you can just kill me. This isn't going to work for me. And then it kind of worked out. But there was a lot of trades. There was one when Diz had Devonta Smith. He was like Devonta Smith and for Bucky Irving or something like that. And this was when Bucky was not even, it was like mid-season. And I was like, yes, I'll do that right now. And then Diz just kind of faded away and he got in his own head about it. And in the end, I'm grateful he didn't do it. But man, I was like, Diz, are you awake? Let's make this happen. It's in your inbox, and I'm so glad that never actually took place.
Yeah, dude. The one that I thought about was Cooper Kupp straight up for Jonathan Brooks.
Oh
And
my Lord.
it's so funny, man, because like again, it was me coming after Cleaner, and I'm like, dude, I need him.
Yeah.
And so like we were sitting there at Zach Pitts' house, and like I was like, okay, we should just like we are talking now, and it's like no cash, just straight up, I'll take Jonathan Brooks, you get Cooper Kupp. And Clean was the one that was like, man, I got to sleep on that. Like I got to think about it. I was like, yeah, you know what? Probably a good idea if I sleep on that too.
That Jonathan Brooks captured the league's imagination, and honestly,
God,
it's I mean, I wasn't sure. I too was kind of like, yeah, he's pretty good, I guess, but it's the Panthers. And then I always just like kind of waffle back and forth of like, how good could he possibly be?
Dude, I was like, him and Pacheco was another
Yeah.
interesting one. I felt like all year, just especially with Gabi out there giving like medical reports on
Oh
it and
my
stuff.
God. That was the best thing we got out of him. That's for sure.
Dude, so good. Overall, though, for your season,
Yeah.
um, how did you like? We obviously know where we all ended, but how did you feel about it? Was there
Um,
anything like? Was it a win for you? Was it a
in the grand strategy of this game, and I talked about this. I hate plugging myself, but I'm plugging myself. I talked about this stuff like I played this year as if it was like dynasty, dynasty mode, and I think in a lot of ways I should have played it like it was arcade. And I think the one moment that really was a defining, like we'll never forget the path I had to choose was the AJ Brown trade. Because at that point, like I had gotten a win, I had gotten multiple wins without AJ Brown, which encouraged me to just like you can just send him away. You've already won
yeah?
4 or 5 games, like you clearly don't need him. And then the moment I hit yes, that was me deciding, okay, this year I'm just going to ride the fumes of the first couple of weeks and see how far that can get me. And that was my decision. I personally regret it because, like we said, it's a disservice to your team to win that many games and then not try to just push it to the limit. Like, who says
Right.
why didn't I just build off of AJ Brown and get another guy and then get another guy and then just like see how I've already gotten the 5 or 6 wins. I think it probably would have ended up with like maybe a first, maybe second round exit at the end of the day from just the talent. But
Yeah.
that was the only thing I really regret is like I feel like I did a disservice to the team. So by the end of the year, I was defeated for the most part. I mean, also losing David Montgomery was just it was that's game over for me at that point.
So throughout the year, because like obviously you being the well now former champ, but
Yeah.
um, how much did it get to you throughout the year with people like targeting or coming for you, talking shit? What was your mindset there? Because there was one specific instance I remember you talking about it. You're like, "Yeah, dude, nobody room for me and everything." I'm like, "Well, dude, you're a champion. Like, of course not." Like,
Yeah. Keep me away from Thursday night games because I got fucking infuriated on the Thursday night Cleveland Browns Steelers game that started snowing at halftime. And that pissed me off because I had 2 pass catchers in that game and they just shit themselves. And then the other Thursday night game was the Brock Purdy reigning game, which was
oh,
just another kill me moment. That was your Cooper Cup zero moment as well.
Mother Goose.
Um, to be honest, like this season, I took it a little personal because I was trying to do a defense. I like knew there was that stat that like no one had made the playoffs even defending in the auction era. So the fact that that was the whole goals. I made the playoffs, but then the one thing I'll say as advice to this, Cal will learn this. None of the accomplishments you do in the DVFFL are going to get the shine that they deserve. Everyone's going to shit on you. So if I think I came out of the year last year with the win that I got with the backup quarterback, backup tight end, just it was a total shit show and I still managed to win. And I was expecting like, all right, guys, lay it on. That was pretty good. And none of you guys fucking acknowledged it. So that kind of like, I think I was sour from that from the very beginning. And I've been playing like Reclamation and honestly, Brandon's namaste shit laughable, but it is true. Kind of take it
Dude,
easy.
seriously though, man, that's so true. Because I'm telling you, dude, DBFF, or no, just fantasy football is just so draining sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, but we love it, it's like an addiction. And I think like especially with Brandon's Namaste, which I feel like is just like a theme for this year.
Yeah.
But like knowing like in my shoes, I always think to myself, I'm like, okay, I know like nobody wants to see me win.
Yeah.
Like, why would they want me to continue? Like, especially in the playoffs, like, why would anybody want to give me like any sort of credit or anything? So you kind of just have to come to terms with it. It's like, okay, namaste. Like, I'm not, I will not be affected and angered by this.
Right. Well, I can't even imagine how you felt like no one has ever done a title defense in the sense that they've won back to back. So, like, after the back to back, in my mind, though I never said it to you, I was like, fuck, that's pretty impressive. Like, I might never be done again. So,
Yeah.
how did you feel when you didn't get literally shit for it?
Yeah, it didn't feel good. I'll tell you that. Like I know what you mean. Like it rubs you wrong. So like, damn, dude, like somebody give me some credit. Somebody like
Right.
stroke me off here, you know? And so that, yeah, that was the second one, and that one definitely hit a lot harder. Like I could seeing you go through the motions this year with your second
Yeah.
championship. I was like, yeah, dude, I understand that. Like I would be hot too because nobody's like giving me the time of day or whatever it
Right.
is. It's like you're trying to get some like gratification from it. Um, but kind of what you're talking, maybe this is also just like the evolution of us as players, especially the guys that have been doing it for 14 years. It's like I think we're just evolving on how we can like handle certain, aspects of our league and everything. Like especially the stress part of it. Even though it's always there. Like don't get me wrong, it's
Yeah.
like even still to this day, there's points of time I'm like, dude, yeah, like give me a little bit more. Like I think I was like blowing up Red going into the playoffs and Alec because they were both telling me like, yeah, dude, your team's not that good, like and everything. I'm like, okay, well, I put up 100 points in the 4 out of the 5 last weeks or whatever. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
come on now, like give me something. But yeah, the Nama State thing is just it
Well, I
cut.
think you handle it the best because I think what you do, which is the best deflection, is that you just start listing off your accomplishments, and then it's like there's really not an argument because no one else is having that same argument with you. And I can't necessarily do that because you'll come swooping in, oh, 3-time champion, So I've got to get pretty inventive with how I get around those things.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a good point because that's like it's an easy defense mechanism for me where
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, if you want to do this, like let's pull out the big guns here.
yeah.
But everybody else, like yeah, you have to be creative about how you're gonna defend
Yeah.
yourself,
To
you
be
know.
honest, too, there's a lot of teams that get the benefit of just not being very active in group me. I know there's everyone's reading it, but there's not the active presence during Sunday. Like during Sunday, there's usually the same 4 to 5 people who are kind of pushing along the narratives and reacting. But I'm kind of envious at times of like the Jadens and the Jessies and the Peytons that kind of slip through these things. Things can be bad, and I'm like, I want a week off, but I have to be in here just to say, well, Zach's here. The show has to continue.
The show goes on. Well, and
Yeah.
do you feel like that's also because of your platform on the Podly,
Oh
the Nut
yeah.
Report?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like I imagine it in my mind. This is the most self-serving thing I can say is like I'm the Harlem Globetrotters, and I've done 500 shows, and I'm on the 501st show, and everyone still wants to see the Harlem Globetrotters. So I have to put on the whole. You're going to talk shit to me in the group me. I'm going to talk shit back to you, and it's like I'm tired of doing it, but I feel like everyone who plays me wants the full nut effect of
yeah.
I beat him while he was angered or whatever it might be. And I truly want to go into next year with that not being the case because I worked so fucking hard to watch Sunday games, not staring at my phone and just actually watching the games. And I
Uh-huh.
can't have that be group me arguing and not watching the games.
Oh, dude, I totally get it because like first of all, 500 shows. I didn't even realize that. So you're
Oh
on.
no, that was just me saying like that was a big number. We've done
Oh, I'm like, no way. That was like,
now we've
wow.
done I think in total, if you put playoffs and regular seasons, we're like 230 games. So
Okay.
230 shows I've put on if I'm considering a week against me as a show, that's what's happening.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Do you know how many episodes you've filmed now at this point?
I think this year, with the other years prior, I think we've reached the 50 episode mark
Nice.
cumulatively. I need to like start to save them because I have the free SoundCloud account, so I have to delete an episode just to make space. I would
Oh,
love to have
right.
all of them on, but I have to pay for it. So I really have to just come to grips of like I should just pay for it at this point.
I know. Yeah, it's like this StreamYard. They allow us to save, and I can download all of the episodes, but also we post on YouTube, so it's just
Yeah,
always it's nice that it's on there. It is always funny to me too because I don't know how SoundCloud works, but like in YouTube we can see the views on it, and it's like
yeah,
there's more views than there should be, I feel like. And so I'm
yeah.
like
I agreed.
I'm like, who is watching this, dude? Like, 'cause you'd have to know. I mean, it's so like tailored to our league that
I
I'm like,
know.
it's just some rando just sitting there. And the fact too, it's always funny because like I get a notification that we're blocked in Russia every single time I post an episode. I'm like, oh, the
Yeah,
poor
there you go.
Russians. They don't get to see us. Does SoundCloud do that too? Do they?
No, I don't. I'm in such a niche space because I'm not associating it with any genre. So it's basically just being put out
Mm,
there, and it's not really being tagged. I'm not really taking the time because it's just a direct link. Like I don't think anyone's going to organically find me. Like you know how the algorithm for YouTube would serve
yeah.
that up. So I usually get around 15 to 19 listens, and I figured that's either everyone in the league listening and then maybe catching it a second time or something like that. But
Yeah, the second listens.
yeah, yeah,
I definitely do because I have to. I'm like trying to go back through. I'm like, okay, what did Nuts say in here that I think is
right.
wrong or what a challenge?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is like it's tough sometimes watching like your show or watching Gobby Talks in particular, and you guys get a stat wrong, and I'm like, you fuckers, it's on the website. Like it's on the fucking website. Like check it.
Dude, it's literally because like there's always the intent before like we're gonna prep really well for the show and I'm gonna get all my stats down and then it just doesn't happen. I'm like, ah,
No,
dude, classic Wilson time. Let's just wing it, throw it out there, talk out of your ass a little bit. Nothing wrong
totally.
with it.
Well, I mean,
uh,
I feel like we had a good moment there though. We had five championships in this room right now. So, you know, we were just passing on some championship advice to teams about how to manage your own expectations because Cal, like this week is the last week you're going to get any accolades after this.
yep.
You're the shittiest team next to me being the shittiest team. So enjoy this moment.
Exactly, dude. That's what I was telling him. I'm like, you better relish in this right now because
Yeah.
it's gonna go away pretty quick. And especially with him too, dude. I mean, the man's mouth is already starting to really run. I'm like, oh man.
What have we
Like
done?
yeah, I was like sitting there last couple nights ago. I was just like, dude, you gonna talk to me, bro? 3-time champion here, okay?
Yeah,
But
man. I mean, Red, I think Red said it to Alec best. Like you would hear it from Red a couple of times, but that would be the end. But like with Cal, it's like we're never going to hear the end of this.
yeah, no. So yeah, season's over. Here we are. We're looking at everything. I thought it would be kind of fun for us to not so much do like the season recap, but give awards out that we think would be like best manager, your worst
Yep.
manager, all these sort of stuff. Because it is kind of interesting when you look at some of it. It's like I don't know for you, but for me, when I was putting some thought into it, I was like kind of jostling around a couple different awards that I wanted to actually give out. Um, so let's start here. And I mean, it is kind of interesting your answer that you sent me over, but the best manager, the
Yeah.
manager of the year.
Well, I will make the case. I'm curious to hear your name. I do not know your name, but you know my name. I think the manager of the year is Christian. I think from how he handled the team, and I think it's like when you look at the team that if you look at the draft board and the big money players that he had running back were like ETN and James Conner, and then there's these other guys like Chuba Hubbard for $12 and like Tyrone Tracy for $3. Like the guys that really spurred him forward were not the main guys, and there's not a lot of teams that can manage basically having their more expensive players be busts and having their backup players be good. And he never held on to his convictions in the sense of like, well, ETN has to start because they spent $40 on him, and he was more than willing to pivot off of it. And then what really solidified it for me was in the playoffs. He started the Bengals defense in round 1 and round 2. And I was like, the Bengals defense is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. Like every time you have a matchup against the Bengals as a wide receiver or a running back, you're always like, hell yeah, that's an easy defense. And those defenses taught because they played really great matchups. And when you make those kind of calls, I'm like, props to you, man. That's more balls than I would have had. I would have probably just thought maybe NFL reality would be too much to bear, but the fantasy stuff came through. So I think he's the guy.
Yeah, no, I think it's valid arguments. I mean, if you're talking about like, especially towards the end of the year, they were putting together like the Frankenstein team kind of
Yeah.
thing and making those start sit decisions. Sure, I could see Red being up there, and obviously runner up in the championship. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
the record speaks for itself there. For me, the manager of the year has to go to Cal. And it's not just because he won the championship, which obviously is a big part of it, but
Yeah.
uh, it was just like the trades and some of the trades that he made, I thought were just really savvy and it was like just wild how he went about it, and it all came together to this like juicy all-star team. Because like, I mean, I kind of forgot that he traded away Bijan, but
Yeah.
then when you start going down to like, it's like a paper trail of it. It's like he would accumulate these players and then come back around and flip these two players, and you got Bijan back, by doing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that some of the trades were just very creative, I thought. Um, like a low key one would for me would have been the trade that he did with Gabi for the Eagles defense and how much of a role the Eagles D played in his championship run. And it's
Yeah.
like because of the team that he constructed too, he didn't really have to worry about any start sit decisions. Um, I saw his waiver pickups. It was more on the lower end, like the free agent pickups, but it's like
Yeah.
if you have that good of a team, you don't have to go pick up those guys. So when I bake all that in, that's pretty much why Cal would be the manager of the year for me. I don't know. I don't know if
I
you have any
agree.
thoughts on that.
You go into the details. I think he had so many trades. I mean, 15 trades this year. I think it kind of overwhelmed everybody, and maybe that was part of the strategy of just overwhelm us with just too
Oops.
many things, and it's hard to keep track. But I mean, even little things like trading Pat Fryermuth to Jesse and getting David Njoku, like just first of all, getting a trade done with Jesse is not always the easiest thing, and then to get what objectively is a better player, from a statistical standpoint, I know you had to give him some money to do it, but that's the thing is Cal is not afraid to throw the money around. And at the end of the day, when you look at it all, it's the best players that win, not necessarily the amount of money spent to get
Yep.
there. Like I didn't really think too much that Cal has $150, maybe because he's done it a bunch of times before, but he did everything he had to do to get what he needed to get done.
Yeah, no, agreed. Um, Worst manager of the year. And this one was like interesting. Like when I was thinking about it, it was close and I was trying to like factor in all these different like aspects, but I'll start on this one. So
Yeah.
I I was leading with Diz in my mind, but I had to go with Trone. And it just for me it's the start sit percentage. It's like, dude, I don't know how you couldn't get the QB situation figured out. When like even with Patty Mahomes kind of sucking ass there for a bit, it was kind of like, okay, you just gotta pick a guy and just stick with him or something. And I don't know. We talked about consolidation before, and when you have too many guys, and now you're like, and they're all kind of close to each other, to not be able to pick the right guy every single week, multiple guys even, was crazy to me. And then also it's just like you knew the Jordan Mason story. He was going to be good for a while. Everybody knew that he was going to lose his job back to Christian McCaffrey and everything. So why not move off of him at some point? There were so many running back needy teams that like
Yeah.
that we all knew it that he's going to be going away, but you could still use them. Like people could have still used them. And I know like I was one of those teams that was like, dude, I'll pay whatever to get Jordan Mason on my squad. Yeah, I just didn't understand that. So
That's a great point. I think, I too was also hot on the Jordan Mason thing, and I think the last thing I saw was like $20, and I was like, oof, maybe. I don't know.
right.
But glad I didn't do it because obviously that didn't work out. But um, to this end, yeah, I do agree too. I think he's the worst manager this year. Fascinating that the five teams that had the most money, four of those teams finished in the top four, and the only team that didn't with that much money was Peyton, who finished as a Sacco. So his team was like ridiculously talented to the day I die. His team is very talented, but it's almost too talented because he could never make a decision. And the moment that he dropped, I think it was like 60 fab or 70 fab on Jared Goff to cover Patrick Mahomes' bye or whatever that was. And I was like, Peyton, you're only making it worse for yourself. Like now you can't drop
Yes.
Jared Goff.
I know. Yeah, the amount of money that was on the fab that was spent on Jared Goff blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I
Who
mean,
wanted him that badly? I don't know.
and so if you do that, like, why? You obviously you believe in him, so why not
Yeah.
just rock him then? Trade away Patty Mahomes or something, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah. He screwed himself. I doubt that he'll ever do this again. I would hope he never does this again because there is truly a case, and he's proven the case that you can actually have too talented of a team, and that can actually screw you in how you think. And like, I think he just got worn down by the end of the year. Like Mooney was really good. He never played him until later in the season. That helped, but then he has to move someone else off the way. And then
Yeah.
when he gave away Chase Brown and you got him for the Devontae Adams trade, that was another moment where I was like, oh no, this isn't going to help you because you need running backs more than
Right.
anything.
Yeah, it was like I don't know if it was just not understanding your own roster construction or what it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, got Sacco, so got to be
Got
worst
to
manager
sack
of the
up.
year.
Yep.
And it was close with a couple other people. I don't know if you had anybody that was close. Me, Diz, and Jaden were right in there too.
Jaden was really close for me. I think it's just the lack of moves. Like he when he was on and he talked about his strategy, and I kind of shared the same sentiment of like, hey, it's too expensive to get a good team. It's not worth it. I'm like, I'm with you, Jade. But then at some point, you got to protect yourself to not get to the very, very bottom. And he was
Yeah.
damn fucking close.
Dude, rocking that Algier all year long, and
Yeah.
I don't remember the other guy's name. There was Ogunbowale or whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, get
Yeah.
out of here. um, the comeback manager of the year, and I actually thought this one was pretty easy. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think this will probably be easy for all of us. It's probably Cody. It's Cody. That was a new breed of Cody that we saw this year. That was the old Cody that we saw where he's like very savvy. He knows exactly what he's doing. And this year it all clicked. And I'm glad that he did it without Steelers on the team so he can tell himself you don't need a Steeler to be successful. Because I think that's what happened in the past is like he would have a random year where he would get like seventh or sixth. And then he would have like a key Steeler on the team. And he's like, that's the secret. It's like, no, that's not the secret. And it's usually not
Yeah.
the secret.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely um COD. I mean, it's just you get that you have all those sackos and you haven't done shit. I mean, so to come back to put together, I love COD's team this
Yep.
year. I think I said it before in one of the other episodes. It's just electric. All the players on there, um, and I really did think that he had a shot to win it all. And it's just the stack debate fell through. But I mean, what can you do? Like Joe Burrow's still going out there and slinging it, and so can't really hang your hat like on that. It's just more so. I think that COD proved that he has the capability of doing it. You just need some luck to fall your way. So
Yeah.
it was that, and actually, I thought another one was close, and it wasn't really like so much of a comeback because he made the playoffs before. But I thought Alex's team was going to be complete doo doo this year, and starting with like no money at the beginning
Yeah.
of the year, and I was just kind of questioning, like, man, this is probably on me, but just questioning the Kyron keeper compared to like
Yeah.
maybe some of his other keepers, like the Nico and stuff. Um, but then it still worked out. But um, as far as if we're talking individual players, DVFFL MVP.
This is going to hurt you. You go first, actually. I went first in the last one, but this is going to hurt you, I think.
uh, yeah, so no, I was looking at your answer. Nice. Um, I gotta go Lamar, dude. Lamar
Oh,
Jackson.
yeah.
So it's just, and it's not simply just because like he's the has the most points, and whatnot. But like if I'm thinking about who really like carried somebody's team and everything, if Cleaner didn't have Lamar, like yeah, obviously he'd be worse off. But like, dude, Cleaner rode Lamar all the way to the semifinals. I
Yep.
mean, I don't know if there was a single player for another team that like literally carried an entire squad on their back and took him in like that. So yeah, I mean, Clean got some luck, but like because I thought Cleaner's team, and I'm gonna keep saying it was bad and had no business being where it was. And the fact that I lost to him going, this last week, whatever. But it's still like, I'm like, dude, I just don't see it. So yeah, Lamar.
Lamar is a great choice. A great choice because, like, in all those categories, that's the only category he's above the like. He's a serious contender, and everything else he's just kind of like below average. He did carry him, and it's It's so weird though because Alec didn't do Lamar a service. He should have talked about Lamar more. I think we heard about King Henry more than we heard about Lamar. Lamar just teaching, and Lamar was teaching.
He was teaching, especially towards the end. Man, he had some crazy games.
Crazy game. So yeah, Alec. When next time you have a really good player, talk about him a little bit because I kind of forgot about Lamar.
Innocent boy.
Um, but yeah, I think my MVP, which is why I was saying it's going to hurt you, is Josh Allen, just because of those peak performances that we saw at Josh Allen. Considering the team, like it kind of goes back to Cal being the best manager case, which I think is a valid case, is because he kind of took advantage of depreciated like draft values, like when they got rid of Stephon Diggs and it was just like Khalil Shakir and Kincaid and Mac Hollins. Like I thought, like I don't know if I really want to touch the Bills. That doesn't seem like that's going to work out for Josh Allen, and he made that not an issue. Just the same Josh Allen, even better than ever before. Same thing with James Cook. Like kind of walked me away from that, and then Cal got the Justin Jefferson thing for a discounted price because of Darnold, and that didn't matter either. But Josh Allen was, man, he's a game changer, that's for sure.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see like it's so annoying too because like I was right there with you. I didn't even mean to get Josh Allen on my team
Yeah,
when we were drafting. I had no intention of going after him. It was just the price at the time. But for him to go, because like all the things you talked about, but for him to go out there and put up records, like with what team, like Keon Coleman,
yeah,
get out of here. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. I don't know. It was kind of like Josh Allen was teaching, doing his thing, but he wasn't like having those crazy games in the playoffs that I was expecting, like we
yeah,
thought, I think all of us were. So that's the only reason he kind of slid for me a little bit down. Because like if you take Josh Allen off that team, let's just say he had Kyler Murray still. Cal still had plenty of freaking teachy players. I mean, he had
yeah.
plenty of hogs to still carry him. We take away Lamar and give Kyler to Cleaner. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, dude, that team looks bad.
No, that's a good point. I have to ask though, with the conversation with Kyler and Josh Allen, like what was it that you saw in Kyler? Like what was, because what I can hear from you is that like you had expectations for Josh Allen, and this happens all the time. Like there's players that we trade away that were like, I like them, but for some reason they slighted me and I just don't really feel comfortable with him. And it sounds like Josh Allen just didn't live to the expectations that you had set for him, even though he was still good. Was that the case, or like what was it with Kyler? Was Kyler someone you really, really wanted?
Dude. I'm still trying to answer it for myself, to be completely honest. It, I gotta say, part of it was the allure of Kyler and my
Yeah.
love for him for whatever. I had no idea why I love that man. Well, I hate him now, more so than ever. But it was a lot of articles, like just I was diving into some
Yeah.
heavy research, and I was a huge Marvin Harrison believer. Of course, we all know that. And
Yeah, we
so,
do.
um, yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I think like this is his year, and he was like Kyler was doing some big things. Like I think he actually did have statistically his best
He did,
career
yeah.
year,
Yeah.
which isn't really saying much when you actually go look at it. But um, yeah, dude, it was just overthinking it. I mean, and it's kind of weird how it all played out because I wasn't thinking just about the Kyler and Josh Allen trade by itself. I was thinking about how it would string other trades
Right.
later on. And one of the trades that I was working on was getting James Cook forever from Diz. And I kept telling myself, like, okay, it doesn't make sense to have QB running back
Yeah.
situation. And so I mean, dude, I was trying to dish off Josh Allen to so many people, and I wasn't really getting what I thought would like give me that return. And of course, I'm like, oh, dude, Kyler Murray is like, he looks shiny. And so there wasn't really much rational thinking that went along with it. It was just kind of like, yeah, I love Kyler. I'm going for him.
Yeah.
And I also think too, it was more so again, kind of like the Cooper Cup and the Jonathan Brooks trade before, it could have been a lot worse. It was just going to be straight up Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and I think I got $5, and that would have been it. And so when I look back on it like that, I'm like, holy shit. Um, So the Rasheed Rice, because actually,
Yeah.
again, I had these trades string together, and I'm thinking about all of them, not so much just the one. I was actually already, I was planning on trying to make a move for Rasheed back from Brian, and then Cal stepped in there and got him in whatever deal that was done. And so I was like, okay, now I feel a lot better about this trade if I get the Rasheed aspect of it, because I still believe that Rasheed, dude, Kansas City's like the golden child of the NFL. I don't, the suspension will happen,
Yeah.
yes, but I don't think it's be as bad as what everybody's thinking. And then
That's
you
fair.
also, like, if you really want to be thinking about like dynasty aspect, okay, yeah, maybe next year it could be a little bit shittier than I'm thinking with the Rasheed Rice keeper, but what about the year after that, and then the year after that or something. So
Yeah. That's where we're at odds because I used to be in that space of like you string together a dynasty, like if you get like a Justin Jefferson situation, which you have like the league is getting more expensive. So like you've nailed that part of it, but you never know what's gonna happen in 2 years. And your team could be shit and he's awesome, and that could suck too. So uh
yeah,
I'm playing
ideal.
for tomorrow.
I know, man. Well, it's like so many lessons I've learned with the keepers now. Yeah,
Totally.
dude, Maggot, like I thought Brees Hall would have been a walk. It was so easy. Like this
Yeah.
is too easy for a keeper. And then I mean, it shows how finicky of a bitch fantasy
Man,
football is.
when you had him as an option, there was two keepers that I was really jealous of. He was one because like everyone preseason, I think this kind of helped the Kyler Murray thing over the fantasy football kind of universe over the summer was Kyler Murray was like the MVP, get him in like the get him.
Yeah.
Same thing with Brees Hall. They were like that guy's gonna be legitimately a number one running back, and honestly, we saw it. He did it with Zach fucking Wilson, so it's how could it be worse? And it was worse.
Dude, it makes no sense to me.
None.
So, yeah, I mean, lesson learned, just don't trade away, arguably the best quarterback. And uh, yeah,
Yeah.
don't overthink too. But
Yeah.
if, if we're thinking about trades, though, so speaking of which, the trade of the year,
Yep.
did you have anything top of the dome, or is that, I know these are some of the ones that we didn't spend a lot of time thinking about before.
No, this is very true. I think trade of the year. This is going to be a surprising name, and it wasn't what we talked about pre-show, but more I was thinking about it. Um, Cody trading Sam Darnold and like a little less than $10 in cash. I'm not entirely sure what it was. For Joe Burrow from Mike was
Hmm.
savvy as shit because like we all know like Cody's made it a meme now, and good for him for Stacktivate. Now that's just part of our vocabulary now. But we all know that like there's a premium when someone's chasing the stack, even though we've kind
Yes.
of I think we were really hot in the stack a couple years ago. In the last couple years, it hasn't really proven to be much. But Cody has revived the stack because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are just legitimately that's unfair. And the fact that he was able to do that for basically Sam Darnold, who is nothing to scoff at, but not fucking Joe
Right.
Burrow. And that was pretty fucking savvy without having to pay a huge price.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good one. It kind of that's like a low key. It kind of sneaks under the radar.
Yeah.
Like I look back on because I don't really like. I'm like I for some reason thought that COD had drafted him, but I'm like, oh yeah, no wait, Trike had him, and it's so wild too because he gets Sam Darnold, but then he gets Baker Mayfield too. Who Baker just went
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that
Um,
wouldn't work. That worked out for him. I mean, it's kind of like I don't need Sam Darnold. Get rid of him.
yeah, I know. It's so wild to me that like Trike had that leisure while the rest of us, well, I know for
Give
you,
him to
try to,
me. Give him fucking
yeah, you're trying to figure out your QB situation.
God.
Um, yeah, okay. So my trade of the year, I wanted to put in myself with the
Yeah, Jacobs.
Tyreek and
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs, which I mean, because like honestly, I don't think anybody thought that Josh Jacobs was going to be as good as he was this year. Like I
Yeah.
definitely didn't even trading for him. I thought there was positive regression coming, but not to be taboo though, I'm not gonna put myself up there. So the one that I do think is the trade of the year, and it's simply just because of how many different things it impacted was um Diz trading James Cook to me for the I think it was $36. Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that, for Chase Brown. And it really just come it just comes down to I mean, I offered the trade, but for Diz, if you want to talk about like a trade that helps your team, brought him up out of the hole, so he was over $200.
Yeah.
It actually gave him some sort of hog, so to go compete, like saved him from a Sacco, and gave him a keeper for at least next year.
Yep.
And yeah, so I just out of all those, I think that would have been the trade of the year for me. And there's a sneaky low key one that I wanted to mention was Calvin's trade to Mitch, where he got the Eagles D, and it was just like some bullshit tight ends and stuff. Like, or was I don't know, it was a tight end. It
It
was
was Tyler Lockett, Taysom Hill for like something garbage and the Eagles defense. But yeah.
yeah, because that trade, if like when it first went down, I remember looking at him like, dude, what is this? Like, get it off my screen. Just a bunch of nothing. But then you go look at it, and I'm like, oh shoot. So the Eagles D is actually one of the best, and their schedule, especially in the playoffs, looked juicy.
Yeah.
So now when we look back on it, I mean, Eagles D was a huge part of the like Calvin's championship run there. Yeah, I don't know if he would have won a championship without that D. So
Yeah.
I'd have
And
to
I
give it
think
that.
Mitch probably wanted that Eagles D when he was in the Sacco instead of that Colts D getting -1.
Like, dude, yeah, we were talking about that in the pre-show. Like, Gobby, why would you, if you had the Chiefs D, and I mean, yeah, it's Pittsburgh. Like, I'm not really running away scared from Pittsburgh, though.
No.
If you have the Chiefs D, why wouldn't you just play them? Why would you play the Colts? Like,
Yeah, it's like
ever?
have we seen a Steelers shootout in a while? Like unless they're playing some garbage Browns team and they're in the snow
Hmm.
for some reason. Like that was the only year in which we were like, oh man, the Steelers are really opening it up. They looked like shit the entire end of the year. They kind of fell apart.
Yeah. So, speaking of
Dumb,
which,
dumb.
talking about worst, what's the worst trade of the year, in your opinion?
Well, you definitely covered a lot of ground on the flip side of your own good trade. That one in particular is, that's a special. I think both the Josh Allen and the Chase Brown one. So to give the people a little bit more than the same thing we've been talking about. I think as much as I know that it's not like Red gets the best manager of the year, but the Jonathan Brooks and George Pickens thing still doesn't sit right with me. I know that Pickens, inevitably didn't play. Brooks tears his ACL, didn't work out. But when I was talking about this the week in the Podley, it was like best case scenario is that Brooks is not as good as Hubbard, and Hubbard keeps his full time role. But every other scenario that you're trading him for, you might get a situation in which they're splitting their time, which makes both of them bad. Or the best case scenario is that Jonathan Brooks is literally Todd Gurley reincarnated, and it's so obvious that he's so much better than Hubbard. But what are the chances that's going to happen? So doing all of that and trying to do it to protect Hubbard, and Hubbard dies anyway. It didn't matter. It didn't like the back. That was just one of those wasteful kind of like nothing trades.
Yeah, no, 100%, dude. And especially with Red like shitting on Jonathan Brooks all year long and just
Yeah,
preaching about it. And then for him to go get him, I'm like, dude, why would you put yourself in that position? You
yeah,
know you're gonna get shit on by the league for that. And like, yeah, it's just the Jonathan Brooks thing. It was so weird this year because he was just floating around this idea. It's like I've never even seen this dude touch an NFL field before,
right.
and he was like just the hype, like the most hype man ever. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like the trade of the years and then the worst trade of the year, I keep finding myself wrapped up in these. I mean, I will come out definitely admit that I had the two worst trades of the year.
Yep.
And it's just not even close. But um, if I were to pick a different one though out there, I still the the Almond Raw one with Cal and Jaden and the Marvin Harrison thing. Like, even though I was pounding the drum for Marvin Harrison, I just that trade to me it was like, okay, you're one, Jaden was wrapping up his season already, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, there's so much time left to be, had, and you're getting like you got the cash, but it's I don't know, man. You have a solidified top five wide receiver, and you could make some other trades around your team, and like all of a sudden you go from being looked at as one of the worst to possibly, a contender. And so that trade to me, I think it was just like the timing of it, because I'm like, yeah, I think Marvin's gonna be good, but it's only handful. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks into the season,
Yeah.
and it's like, dude, get the for sure thing, especially when you already have holes on your team, but don't sell off right now because it was like I kind of forgot about it was Pate losing some of his draft cash, and so you got to like thinking about that. It's like, well, dude, yeah, you get $30 for Marvin, but if your team's that bad, you're gonna go to Sacco. What's it for then?
Right,
You
exactly.
know?
And I mean, like, it made me feel bad because I think it was like a week or two after I did the AJ Brown one, and it was $30 for St. Brown and Marvin Harrison. I was like, oh, Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison are not equal parts, so I felt like I got
Right.
fucked. But then St. Brown is not also equal parts to AJ Brown. Like St. Brown is just another level of he's like the ideal possession receiver you could possibly want, and
Yeah.
AJ Brown is dealing with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles and all the weird things that he has to deal with. So yeah,
Right.
that was a tough one for Jaden. I mean, like you can roll into war with Jalen, Jaden Daniels, Joe Mixon, and Amon Ra and probably survive the Sacco. But that point, it was
Right.
like floodgates are open now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just like how it set him up, or the perception of where he was going to go
Yeah.
afterwards. That one hit. Um, Best roster of the year.
Whew, man, this is I gave I obviously I gave the worst trade to Red, and I already gave him best manager, and I think that was his only blemish. Honestly, was that trade because I think he managed his roster really well, and this is all bait and switch because it's not going to be Red. I think the best roster was Cal, mostly just like what you were talking about is you just get these names of like Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nakua, St. Brown, Justin Jefferson all on the same
Yep.
team. And it just makes me feel like a lot of the things that he did in the draft, a lot of the trades that he made, like you pointed out, like we're all so competitive. And at this point, it's almost like everything is very clear to us because obviously it's over. So we know what, like, oh, that was dumb. Like, why did we all think that? But, he took advantage of a lot of situations that I think we were all kind of like Justin Jefferson should have been the most expensive wide receiver in the draft, and he wasn't. Like, what are we doing? And I know he didn't finish number one. I know Jamar Chase did, and he should be more expensive too. But like, it all became very clear how dumb we were, and Cal took advantage, and sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, it's weird how like we'll go through a season and then we kind of forget about some of the players that did well that season, but it's kind of like it's a trick, and think, or like if they're doing bad, you're like, oh yeah, we know why. It's like the offensive coordinator, being
Right.
stupid or something like that, and then we devalue them, and it's like, wait a second, like Bijan was, I think, was a big thing. It's like, okay, he didn't really do much last year. Yeah, Arthur Smith and all that. They change everything up, and it's like, well, wait a second. Bijan was still considered like a generational running back coming out, and like we're going to devalue him in a sense, even though he still went for more. I think it's just, I'm saying that perception there. The Justin Jefferson one's probably the biggest one,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I mean, I have to agree with Cal. If I'm going to throw another name in there, it'd be COD. I thought COD had just, I mean, I said it before, but the electric team, man, like before Eckler goes out too with injury. So like I wouldn't even mind running Brian Robinson, like say Eckler, or like one of them in the flex and everything. And Boswell was teaching. He
Yeah.
was like one of the best kickers. The stack debate, Jameer Gibbs, and then you got it was either Malik Neighbors or Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
and I'm like, so when I look at COD's team, that's like a team that I would love to have. And I mean, again, that's why I was picking to go win a championship possibly. But it's hard to go against Cal because yeah, top to bottom on the paper there, you're looking at it, it's just hogs all over the place.
Yeah. I can kind of relate to like last year's draft, the year that I won, not this year, but the year that I won last time. If you
Ah.
guys forgot already, two-time champion.
Mhm.
When I was able to draft Eckler and Barkley kind of back to back for like $50, and that blew my draft board off the window because like I had Barkley and like those guys in like the 60s. Obviously, Eckler is a liar and he fucked me, but that
Another
feeling of
liar.
coming another liar, but coming out of the draft and you just like you look at your team and you're just like, oh, the league is so fucked. That's how it felt, and I'm sure Cal felt that once the trade deadline had passed, he saw that there was no one else that was really going to contend to his roster, and just like, oh, it might be. I can understand that feeling of like, if these guys just do their normal job, I win. In a lot of cases, when you go into your weeks, you're kind of like, all right, David Njoku, it's got to be a legacy reminder game. Like, I need you, buddy. And Cal never had to ask for those kind of games from his players.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just having again, yeah, it's you don't have to do anything really. You're just kind of chilling, like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's got to be a nice feeling for sure. Um we'll wrap up with worst roster. So
Oh,
like,
man.
originally when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, this kind of like goes into worst manager
Yeah,
as well, but at the same I started thinking about it, I'm like, well, I don't think the worst roster had the worst manager
yeah.
separated. I'll start on this one. Dude, Diz, that Dirty Diner was so rotten. I mean, that's got to be one of the worst teams on paper I've ever seen. I,
Yeah.
it's like you're looking at it and there's just one hog on there. I
Yep.
mean, maybe you want to try to throw Herbert in there, I guess, but it's like, dude, if this was any other year, if I was like, actually, if I were just a bystander and I was looking at the DVFFL and I'm looking at everybody's team, I'm like, whose team is this? This team is absolute trash. They don't deserve to be winning shit. So, yeah, I think it just had to be Diz. And I thought too, like, I thought he was a fine manager in the sense of like being active. There was some trades they actually made that were like we already talked about the Chase Brown
Yeah.
one. I thought the Terry McLaurin one was huge. So as far as the management goes, yeah, maybe not so much the worst manager, but when that team at the end of the year you look at on paper, no bueno.
Yeah, I can see that. I do think there's two teams that kind of slightly take the edge. And it's funny that we
Ooh.
talked about worst manager and we didn't bring up this guy, but Brandon's team, if you look at that roster right now, is pretty insane. I mean, like, there's a lot to unpack on Brandon's team. First of all, like, he had handcuffs from the very beginning and they were the wrong handcuffs for 17 out of the 18 weeks of the season. Like, how one manages to hold all that and having Gus Edwards be garbage, and then all of it was bad from the very beginning. C.J. Stroud was the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. Tank Dell was the most controversial starting wide receiver, and he would never stop doing it. So, in hindsight of worst manager, I know we got paid for the start situations, but roster construction wise, roster focus, Brandon is there 100%.
I love that, dude. Yeah, I mean, the amount of times we've shit on Brandon now over the over the year, like we could go back and all of again, but yeah, I think we all just know it's just, dude, he just didn't. He overvalued the wrong guys
Yeah,
and just sat there with like, dude, Tank Dell just cannot get over that. Get that man. I hope he never drafts him again. I
I
never
hope
want to
so
see Tank
too.
Dell on Brandon's team.
I
Yeah.
say all this though because I don't think he actually had the worst roster. Because I think
Oh.
I had the worst roster by the end of the season.
No
I don't
way,
know.
really?
I don't know if anyone was realizing what I was rolling out the week I played Cody, but we had Kevontae Turpin starting for the team,
Yeah.
which I liked a lot, actually. He's one of those hidden gems that I'm actually really obsessed with. Devontae Wicks, Devontae Wicks, Dontavian Wicks fucked
Hmm.
me. Mike Boone starting, trying to hold that thing down. He had 2 carries.
Bro, you had Mike
Um,
Boone playing? I didn't even know that.
yeah, because I was like, I need a starter because I didn't choose Audric Estime. I couldn't make my dice roll between Estime and Javante Williams. Javante Williams had 2 receptions for nothing, not even a single yard, nothing, zero. And then Kendre Miller was in there until 5 minutes before the game started, and I have a feeling that he's going to get hurt. And then, sure enough, by halftime, he was concussed, and I was like, I did dodge a bullet, but I ended up going into the Mike Boone thing. So by the end of the year, I say all
Whoa.
this, I was bad. I was really bad. And I still put up a respectable 78 points. We'll take
Yeah, I
that.
see that. I guess I didn't realize that COD put up 120 to
Yeah,
78.
yeah,
Man, dude,
it,
that's a
it
who?
was bad.
Joe Burrow? Yeah, wow.
Joe
Okay.
Burrow just taught a lesson on that Saturday night. I was like, Bo Nix was like, I'm so beaten down by quarterbacks that when Bo Nix gets 21 points, I'm like, oh my god, that's a Hall of Fame game for me. Because Caleb Williams, he sucked my soul out. I think he really killed me. I was really convicted on him.
Oh, dude, yeah. Um, okay, so that's the end of our awards, but I am curious, just for your own personal perspective for yourself. Who is there anybody that you just burned you this year that you'll never touch again?
Yeah, there's a couple people. The whole 49ers adventure, I think for a lot of teams this year was not a fun adventure. And I went head first with the Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy experience because again, Caleb Williams is a liar. So it starts with Caleb Williams is a liar because I held so strong. And it was one of those things, and I'm sure you kind of felt this way if you ever got a hold of Marvin Harrison and obviously Kyler Murray. Like you have a conviction, everyone knows that's what you believe, and you realize about halfway through this is not right, but I can't drop it because I don't want to deal with the PR shitstorm. And that was Caleb Williams because like I had to roll him out, and then he started looking better, and then I'm like, let's go. Here we go. It was just the first couple of weeks, and then he was bad again, and I was like, I fucking hate you. I hate you so much. And he was actually pretty decent at the end of the year. He wasn't like the worst thing in the
Yeah,
world. So he started it, and then Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk in particular, I got one good game out of him, which felt great because I was like, we're back, and my expectations for him were like number wide receiver number one. Like we are on our way. Savvy move after sending away Xavier Worthy and Ramondre Stevenson. And then the 49ers, like I never trusted Brock Purdy, even though he played arguably really well this year. He's just not to any advice to anybody next year when you're thinking about Brock Purdy and he's on the draft queue, don't do it. He's not good enough to start and he's not bad enough to bench. He's the worst player to have on your team because you can't tell yourself I'm comfortable because I learned in that Thursday night rant that I was doing when it rained that he actually historically has a terrible track record in the rain. He has never played well in the rain. And as soon as it started raining, I was like, I'm fucked. And certainly he came to life. You have a guy who's playing in San Francisco and he can't play in the rain. And he plays in a division where he plays in Seattle outside in the rain. How can you draft that man? Fuck that man.
dude. Another liar.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, no, actually
Yeah.
that's a good one. I wasn't really I mean, Brock Purdy's just never been a guy that I cared about, I guess. I didn't think like I'm like, I don't think he's like terrible, but I don't think he's great. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a good one. I mean, obviously for me, Kyler Murray will never sniff my team again. He won't be whispered or
Yeah.
anything. There will be nothing of Kyler Murray ever to be around me again. Fuck that
He's
dude.
in the same category as Brock Purdy. Am I in like those tiers of like good enough
Yeah.
to look good on a starting roster, but makes you feel terrible at the end of the game?
Dude, all I could think about was like, okay, maybe I should go grab a different QB because I don't trust Kyler. I'm
Yeah.
like, in those playoff games, we're going into it, I'm like, man, I was stressing so hard about Kyler every single week because like, yeah, it's to the point where if they're like they flash a little bit, they have the potential, but you just don't trust them because they're a big fat liar.
Hmm.
And but you can't drop them or you can't. Dude, if I were to slide in a different QB and Kyler goes off and then
Yep.
this guy sucks, I'm like, oh, dude, it's maddening. Kyler,
No.
yeah, fuck Kyler. He'll never come back. And honestly, I think the guy that burned me this year that I can't have back is Cooper Cup.
Oh, he burned you
Uh,
big time. That's for sure.
dude, the amount of trades I denied because, like, I was never like, obviously Cooper Cup's been good for years and stuff, but recent years, especially with Puka coming on,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not sold on him. I didn't really have any intention of having him on my team this year, but it happened in that trade. And then I started drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'm like, Cooper Cup, dude, he's going to be the same hog as he was before. And Puka and him can both eat and everything. And so I was denying trades left and right. where I could have gotten so much more for him. Like I could have gotten Cortland Sutton and Najee from Gabi, and just with Cooper Cup. There's a couple other aspects in there, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I think about all those guys, and then for him to go out there and Mother Goose me and dick around for the last 3 weeks, I'm like, yeah, dude, you'll never be on the squad either. I don't
To be
hate you,
honest, his,
but
his stock is like everyone's chasing that like incredible year, and everyone who's gotten him afterward has not had a good time. I think he kind of needs to fall into the camp of like you draft him with all of this. Like he's not a $30 player. He's probably around the $20 player where it's like if it all clicks, like Jalen Waddle, if it all clicks, it's gonna be great. But
yeah,
he's gonna be hurt probably more often than not.
exactly. And what was the most maddening part about it is like, obviously, I love the data and the articles
Yeah.
and stuff, and everything I was seeing like rest of season ranking and stuff is like Cooper Cup top 10. He's gonna kill it.
Yeah.
I saw him as high as number 6 at one point, and I'm like, sold, dude. Like, I'll take him. And yeah, so for him to come out and just finish the way he did, and I'm watching Puka eat out there, I'm like, oh, dude. Yeah, it pissed me off big time.
I don't blame you, man. It's hard too when you have those big names that just fall away for you because it's like you once you're in that space, like you said with Kyler, like once you start to think, oh, I'm going to bench him, and then you're like, okay, so who do I pick up? I mean, you pick up Jameis Winston for the 2 weeks that he's out. Like you can't really tell yourself to do that. So at that point, this is probably where Peyton's headspace was the entire year, but you're fucked.
Yeah,
It's all over at that point.
yeah, it's like there's a principle to it too that you're trying to
Yeah,
upheld.
yeah,
Um, well, with that being said, do you now that we have our awards, we have our champion,
yep,
our liege, Calvin. Welcome to the manor again.
yes,
Pate,
welcome.
Pate, your punishment will be severe, my friend. Any final thoughts about the season or DBFL where we're at?
One thought for each. The season, I think, was a really big season. I think this, we always make the joke as it was such an interesting year, such a weird year. It's such a competitive year. I do think that this season, in a lot of ways, is like a watershed moment where we're going to look back and like everything changed because of this year. For example, the draft was probably one of the most competitive drafts we've ever had, where I was shocked that everyone had done their research, it seemed. And if that's the trend going forward, that will change. I think we'll be much more adaptive. Like, we're not going to have nearly as many of like, what were we all thinking? Like, that probably won't happen as nearly as much as it used to. And then looking at the year ahead, we had more people willing to trade, which is always good. Everyone traded this year, which I love to see. And I just think everything's gotten a little bit more competitive. Everyone's gotten a little more smart. And I think that the strategies of the future are going to be very interesting. The big thing that I'm in seeing and saying is that I don't think they're long-term keepers. Playing for 2 years out are going to work. You got to just play for the now. Your team is probably not going to make it next year. Like you never know what's going to happen. Like you could draft the best team ever, and you can have a CMC situation, and then that's
Yeah.
it. And you're fucked. So that's one part, and the other part for the league. Very excited. I mean, congrats to you, congrats to Red, congrats to Tanner. You guys kept up with Wilson time this whole year. It's
Yeah,
been
thanks.
appointment
A
watching for
miracle.
me. It's a fucking miracle. But the show is so entertaining. I think the addition of guests adds like a bit of flavor. You guys have like really figured out how to make this stuff work. Same thing goes for Gabi Talks, like getting everyone a chance to talk and not just have it be me or you guys is huge. So, but this year having you guys on, I rewatched episodes. I would watch and listen on the commute into work. I did everything I could. As soon as you guys would have it, I think people started getting ahead of the website and they were already commenting on the video before it was even posted on the website. So people were into it.
Dude, that was blowing my mind because I don't use YouTube a bunch and everything, and
Yeah.
so like I was like, how are people figuring out that this is already up? I haven't said anything. I haven't even sent it to Nut yet,
Yeah.
to get up on the site. And I'd have people like Alec or Mike and stuff would text me late at night. I'd be asleep, so I'd wake up and I'm like, what, dude? They're already like talking shit or agreeing or whatever it was. No, I appreciate that, man. It was uh, dude, big kudos to you because for us being able to get this all together and be consistent all year long, I fully understand now how much of a commitment, how much time
Yeah.
it takes, the amount of effort, work. So definitely appreciate you with the Podly, the Nut Report, dvffl.com. Check it out. Yeah, man. So the I was thinking about this too throughout the years, like with our shows, the evolution of not just our league and how competitive we are, but with our content now. And like where we're kind of going. Like I'm super excited to see what happens. I mean, I know like there's a lot of ideas with Wilson time going forward, some changes and like obviously I hope that all of our shows uh we keep coming up with ideas or like different segments or just whatever it may be, like the platform and the look of it and stuff. Because I think we're just like I truly think that there's like part of us that we could monetize it or
Yeah.
we could,
Yeah.
we get a following of some sort. But yeah, it's been super exciting for that. As far as the season goes, it was it was an interesting season. But I think it was also like for a lot of people, I think it was a big success. It felt very competitive this year. I mean, and there was strategies again coming out that never seen before or like really thought about. So I thought this year was a huge success for us, and bittersweet with Brian leaving. Now that we're coming to an end, I shout out to you, Brian, the Shimmering Puss, man. It's been a real pleasure. 14 years of battle in there, and good trades in there, regardless of what anybody says. But yeah, it is bittersweet. And I think I did hear a little bit of whispers that he will be popping on Gobby Talks for the final
Ooh.
episode of the year. Not to spoil that or anything, but already
Ooh.
did. So looking forward to that and just kind of hearing about it. And I guess if anything to kind of address some of the league stuff, yeah, we got to start thinking about replacement options, how we want to go about that,
Yep.
and deciding on the draft house. I mean, a lot of the options people have been sending out have been really good. I just think it's going to be important for whoever we're going to be bringing into the league that we do kind of dial in some of these details beforehand, so that way we're not, doing a last minute thing on the whoever that is. Because more than
Yeah.
likely, they probably don't live right next to wherever we're trying to go.
Yeah, we've kind of oversaturated that market right now. I feel like, yeah, we got to think of someone who's close by who can get to wherever we're going real quick. So, yeah, that'll be coming. That's the next coming months for everybody. And yeah, it's a bummer. And I'm excited to hear Brian on Gobby Talks. I would love to have him the final send off and his
Yeah.
message to all of us.
I know. It's a man, it always feels a little bit weird when we have a shift like that, but I guess also I still rejoice thinking about, like we had Maverick watching the semifinals with us over at Cal's house when a bunch of the league members got together and just hearing about former league members still like talk about the league itself. We're talking even some of the strategy and stuff. So I like to think that all of our former league mates do think about DVFFL, and yeah, it's just like cherished uh thing for them. But at the same time too, I am excited for where we're going as well. Just
Yeah.
as far as whoever we do bring in, I think we have a pretty good head on our shoulders of like what we want, what we're looking for, and we'll make the right call for it.
Yeah,
So,
who wouldn't want to be a part of all this? Who wouldn't want the merch? Who wouldn't want to
dude,
be talking
yeah,
shit?
dbffl.com, man. I mean, come on. It's actually crazy to me too. I forgot to tell you this, but I was sharing dbffl.com. Like, I was talking to a couple people at work about it. And they're like, oh, well, just send us the link. Let's see. And they got on there, and there's like five of them, and they're all like perusing around on. They're like, dude, we were gonna make fun of you guys for this, but this is actually like really sick.
Hell yeah.
They're like, this is impressive and stuff. And yeah, so it's like it's always, dude, it never gets old hearing about our league being the best and
Yeah.
where we're at. Especially because I don't know, man, you hear about these other leagues out there and like some of these guys that are just in championships that we know, and they're like, oh yeah, championship. And I mean, I was able to get this guy off the waiver though, and I'm like, dude. that dude's
Who?
been off
Yeah.
our waiver for I don't even know how long, bro. Like, I don't even know why would he be free, you know? So
Yeah.
just
Let's talk about
comparing it to
Mike
that.
Boone and Cavante Turpin. Let's talk about those guys.
Yeah, I do love that you're a Devontae Turpin fan. That's
I
great.
love a. We can talk. We can talk offline about. There's a hidden strategy to all of this stuff with Cavante Turpin being the MVP of it. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, you
yeah.
got my ear here. Um, but yeah, fantastic season, boys. Congrats again to Cal. Congrats to Pate for a nice sacco to add to his resume. And on to next year. Time to blank out for a couple of months,
Yeah.
reset.
Time to go to bed.
uh,
That's for sure on this.
yeah, exactly. But thank you, Nut, for hopping on the show. It was a pleasure. Thank you for all the pod leads this year.
Of course. Thank you for
Um,
having me.
yeah, that's all we got, boys. You better keep pounding
Pounding
that
that
motherfucking
pud.
pud, bud. Oh, peace out, boys. Till next year.